Abby, welcome to the show. We are excited to have you on. It's been a little while, and
Yeah.
I was looking forward to doing this. You reached out, and I was like, man, I got to get Abby on the show. And so, just a little bit on Abby, guys. So Abby basically came through our program, and she did 90 days, and she lost 30 pounds in 90 days, which is pretty amazing. Am I right about that? Was that 30
Yeah.
pounds?
Yeah, almost 30
Okay.
pounds.
Awesome. So tell us when you first started, where were you, where were you weight wise?
Yeah, so when I first started, I was actually about 2 months postpartum, and I was around 163 pounds. I had lost like 25-ish pounds postpartum at that point, just from having the baby. But I was also more than I wanted to be because post-COVID, I gained quite a bit of weight, and then obviously gained a lot of weight with pregnancy. And so I really wanted to take ownership of my life and get control of my weight and my body. And so I was around, I want to say like 163-ish pounds when I started working with JT, and I'm
Right.
5'5" for context.
That's amazing. So for clarity here, you were 2 months postpartum, right? When
Yes.
you came onto the program.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about like what were your biggest pain points before coming into the program?
Oh gosh, yeah. So my biggest pain points were around basically just lacking confidence in my body. Like my whole adult life, I've sort of fluctuated up and down. And prior to getting pregnant, was in the gym all the time, like 5 or more times a week, but I didn't look like I was in the gym all the time. And so that was a real struggle for me, was feeling like I was lifting so much and working so hard and not really seeing progress. And I'd seen other personal trainers, other fitness people who encouraged me to do all these exercises that I hated. I hate doing hip thrusts. There's certain things I'm just like, oh, why do I have to do hip thrusts? But I had to do all these exercises that I hated, and I wasn't seeing progress. And so prior to getting pregnant, I lost about 7 pounds in 2 months, and it was really slow and it was really hard and just a lot of effort. And so that was my biggest pain point, was feeling like I was working really hard and not seeing results, and then also the lack of confidence in my body.
Amazing, amazing. So when you say you were going to the gym a lot, how many days a week were you going to the gym?
Pretty much like 5 to 6 times a week. I was
Wow.
really, really active. Yeah.
And so you were there for about an hour. I'm not sure if you had any kind of monitoring going on, but calorie wise, you were probably, if you were there for at least an hour, and you're telling me you were mostly doing HIIT training, right? High
Mostly
intensity interval
lifting,
training.
mostly doing like
Okay.
lifting. I did do some HIIT training. I was there for an hour, so it was an hour and a half. And
Wow.
calorie wise, and I don't know if I was tracking my calories properly or not, because my prior coach had suggested I wasn't tracking properly, because I was pretty much eating like 1,300 calories, 1,400 calories a day, and feeling like, how am I gaining weight? Like I had lost some weight prior to the pandemic, and I was at a really comfortable weight like in February 2020. And then when the pandemic hit, I stopped going to the gym because gyms closed. But yeah, I felt like I wasn't really eating a whole lot, and I was hungry all the time and still creeping up in weight every month for some reason.
That's incredible. And that's one of the things that I mention oftentimes with counting calories, macros, or points, is that those systems can be so deceitful, because if you're not tracking correctly, or your labels aren't right, or your brands aren't right, and you're using some kind of tracker, it's very, very deceitful, and it may say 1,400 while you're maybe on 2,300, and then it's very, very restrictive. In the short term, you see some results when you count those calories or macros correct, but then long term, it's not sustainable. So
Yeah,
then,
who's tracking the Chick-fil-A sauce? It's like 100 calories per tablespoon. Like that's wild.
exactly, exactly. So how did you hear about the Empty Your Bucket plan? How did you hear about me?
I heard about you through Ashley Empowers. I was watching one of her videos, and she had a video that was like, I forgot exactly what it was titled, but might have been her second video she made about her weight loss journey, and how
Mhm.
she basically just walked and focused on nutrition. And she looked like she worked out, and I was like, wow, how did she have such Oh, sorry, I hit my microphone. How did she have such amazing progress in the time frame that she suggested. And so I immediately reached out to you as soon as I saw Ashley and Power's video.
That's amazing. So I have here that you started back in April 3rd, 2023, right? So what is that? We're in the 11th. So it's been almost 9 months since you graduated the program. You started at 161.8 pounds, and our goal was to get you to 135, 140, which was between 25, 30 pounds. My last numbers, the last numbers I got from you were 135.8, right?
Okay.
That's so you dropped a significant amount of weight. You hit your goal. It's been about 8 to 9 months, right around there. What are you these days? What do your stats look like these days?
I honestly can't believe it. Like I'm still like hovering between 135 and 140, and I eat literally whatever I want.
Wow. Okay. So this is the part where people get a little confused, right? Because most diets are restrictive. Most diets are telling you don't do this, don't do that. And of course, there was a little bit of that in the beginning when we were first, kind of cleaning up your diet and making some progress. But what you're saying now is that you actually have freedom around food.
100%. Like this morning, like my breakfast and lunch is pretty standard. It's like the same almost every day. I have like eggs and bacon or eggs and sausage and salads and potatoes. But I had like banana bread this morning. Like I eat whatever I feel like eating, and it tastes good. It feels good. And yeah, I've been at 135 to 140 for the last several months.
Wow. So you have that metabolic flexibility. You feel good. You look great. What would you say was like the number one thing that changed for the positive with you doing this program? Of course, all the visceral stuff, you've lost the weight, you look great, but what other components, maybe intrinsic components that most people don't even acknowledge when they're successful on a plan like this?
I think the number one benefit for me has been the shift in my confidence and how that's translated with my marriage. And so I don't want to give too many details, but when you're not confident in your body, it's really hard to be enthusiastic and, in the bedroom and all that. And having that confidence, like my husband never made me feel unattractive or anything like that. But he is like built like Thor. I'm not even kidding. Like he's so muscular. And so for me, it's like I delight in the way he looks, and I want him to delight in the way that I look. And it's been really great to be able to feel that confidence again in the bedroom. And a close
amazing.
The freedom around, not the freedom, sorry, the ease with which I can plan meals now. I don't spend too much time meal planning because my meals are pretty straightforward. It's really easy to plan meals, and it saves me so much time.
Amazing. That's incredible. And one of the things that I hear often is sort of that stress, that burden that most people have around food, right? And so it's like, it's the shame and the, I'm on this diet, but then I go to this party or I do this thing, I fall off, and then I fall into shame and despair and bitterness because I didn't do what I said I was going to do. What would you say, like right now around food? You say, of course, you have freedom. Has that burden that most people feel when they're not necessarily where they want to be, has that left you? Do you feel that?
100%. Like before, it was like if I fell off the plan, it's like, well, I already fell off the plan. I might as well do this. Like there was a time in the plan, I think you'll remember, that I had like Popeyes and McDonald's and like 3 cookies all in one day. And it's like before it was like, to go for broke then if I messed up. And now I think about it, I was like, okay, well, I had a mishap, but just get back on track. And using the 80-20 rule has been really helpful as well, where it's like I don't have to be perfect all the time. And if I eat something that's not so great or not part of the plan, I just go back to the plan right after that. I don't have to toss away the whole day or the whole week.
Incredible. So for those of you guys watching and trying to figure out like, what's this whole 80-20 idea? The idea is that we go through 3 phases and Abby went through these 3 phases: reset, reboot, and excel. Reset is a low carb, high protein protocol. Inside of reboot, what we do is we start progressively bringing in slow digesting carbohydrates to get the body ready and let it know like, hey, we're going to jolt you a little bit with a little bit more insulin than we've been doing. And then in phase 3, we basically go into that 80-20, which says 80% of the time you stick to the parameters, 20% of the time you get to loosen up and eat things that you enjoy eating. And that's what Abby's mentioning, is that she has this freedom now around food, and she gets to get away with so much, which is pretty amazing. Abby, you are a psychologist, right? You work, correct me if I'm wrong, you work mostly with women, right?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your mission and what you do.
Absolutely. So I am an educational psychologist by training, and I have a research background. I don't do like clinical work or anything like that. I don't do therapy. And what I've done is work with women around relationships and dating. That's something that I've done sort of like on the side. And my day job is actually like a pay equity consultant. So I still have like a day job using my psychology skills like for a business. But right. I'm trying to do on the side more around a relationship coaching piece, because I've seen the impact that my relationship has had on my life and how I was able to retain that. And I want to help other women do the same.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So, understanding the mechanics of the human brain and all these things that are so fascinating. I'm a counselor as well, with a master's degree in eating disorders and substance abuse. There's so many parallels with why people have a harder time staying on diets. I'd like to say that 80%, right? This 80% battle is really in your mind. And one of the things that our program really, we separate from the other programs, is that we focus a lot on those cognitive processes, on focusing mostly on the habits versus, shifting, your entire concentration on or focus on the scale. With what you know about the mind, what are some of those components, those cognitive components that you learned inside of the program that you were like, okay, yes, I'm familiar with these things, these patterns, or you saw some parallels there?
Absolutely. There were so many. That's one of the reasons I really love your program. One of them being around the idea of addiction and the abstinence piece of things. It's like, if you want to cut your sugar addiction, you really got to just cut sugar completely for a period of time to get your brain to rewire itself, because of, I'm not a cognitive psychologist, but essentially, you're getting dopamine from the sugar. And so you have to retrain your brain away from getting that high from the sugar. And so I really appreciated that you encouraged us to do that and got us to do that early, because now I just have like a mini pack of Skittles and I'm okay. I don't have to have like a giant thing of Skittles. And so I really appreciated that piece of things with the addiction standpoint, and also around habits and what it looks like to build a habit. I love that you talk about Atomic Habits, James Clear's book. It's one of my favorites.
That's right.
Yeah. And so being able to build habits that are sustainable, as opposed to, for me, tracking calories is not sustainable. I don't want to have to track calories the rest of my life. And I actually did Noom a couple of years ago for a short period of time and hated Noom. I just absolutely hated it, because it felt so frustrating to have to cut down to 1,200 calories and be counting all the time, and I could never feel full. And so with your program, instead of focusing on the calories, I focused on what I was eating, and I felt full through the program. And when I actually would retroactively count my calories, it wasn't that many, but that's probably why I was dropping so much weight, but I still felt full, because what mattered was the quality of the food that I was eating.
Yeah, 100%. So the idea there basically is that for the first 6 to 8 weeks inside a reset, we are resetting your palate and resetting your brain's reward pathways, because the idea is that if you're even consuming 50 grams of carbohydrates, which is minimal, and you're getting that insulin spike, and you're getting that consistently, I'm just saying, even if you do it once, most people in America do it 2-3 times a day, if not more, right? They're constantly spiking insulin. Insulin secretes that neuroreceptor dopamine, which is that neuroreceptor that's associated with well-being. And so as that is secreted, we get addicted. Anything that secretes dopamine makes us highly, highly addicted. And so we operate out of the assumption that everyone, to an extent, is addicted to food. And what needs to happen in those 6 to 8 weeks is to reset the brain's reward pathways, the way the brain perceives reward, so that when we reincorporate some of those foods that spike insulin, that you don't like or want those foods as much as you want them or like them in the beginning, right? So the idea is to kind of change those affections for food. And that's why now it's so sustainable, because I'm assuming that when you go back occasionally and you eat things that you used to love before that were, maybe some of your favorite foods, now you notice that they're extra rich and you're like, how did I even eat this stuff before? Is that happening to
I
you?
had McDonald's the other day and I was like, this is disgusting. I couldn't eat it. I just had to toss it. It was just so bad.
Exactly. So you reset your palate, and that's the idea, because at that point, I don't have to say to you, Abby, don't eat this or don't eat that. You just don't want it anymore, right? Your affections for those particular foods have changed,
Right.
which is pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Abby, there's a lot of people on the other side, but especially women that, have all these ideas around weight loss. I hear it all, right? I hear, well, I'm just big boned. I've heard, well, I'm just from the Midwest. And so, I can't, take weight off, or I have hormonal imbalances, or I have thyroid issues. And not to, disregard those things. Those things, can definitely hold you back. But we've seen so many people come through a program with some of these things, with some of these issues, and still be able to lose weight, keep it off. Most women talk about emotions, right? And this is an area that I feel like you can really speak to, because of you. I mean, because you're a psychologist, because you work with women, and you see like the fluctuations in women's emotions, especially that time of month. I often get the phone calls. Hey, it's that time of the month. Do you account for that time of the month? And I know exactly what they're asking me.
Right.
They're not. So I'm like, well, yeah, sure. Tell me, what do you mean by that? And they're like, well, usually that time of the month, I like to eat chocolate and I like to eat, sweets. Is there room for those things? And what most women are doing there is eating for their emotions, right? To what I, where I come back and say, we don't eat for emotions. I just want to make sure that you are well nourished and that you're satiated, that you're full throughout the day. There's a lot of that questioning, especially with females, like, JT, that time of the month. How did you deal with that time of the month? Like, what was your go-to when you were getting cravings and stuff like that?
It's hard for me to say, because it was, at the risk of TMI, it was irregular because I was postpartum, so I didn't quite have it the way normally. But I think when it's that time of the month, it's really hard. Emotional regulation is really important, just in general. And I like to think of it as when you can control your emotions, you can control more of the outcomes of your life, because your emotions drive your actions. And so if you're letting your emotions drive your actions, as opposed to you choosing how to act, I try to steer women away from doing those things. And so one thing is to practice mindfulness and sort of be aware of your emotions, not judging them, but just be aware of them, observe them, and be able to describe what you're feeling, and allow yourself to feel those and know that it's going to pass. So when I deal with my cravings, I do have them sometimes, or the emotions around eating, I think about the bigger picture, like, what is my goal here, and what am I trying to achieve? And that helps me to kind of circle back to it. Okay, well, is it worth it to eat this thing right now when I have this bigger goal?
So basically what I hear you saying is, we're cognitive human beings. We think, we feel, we act. And if we're strictly driven by emotions, which, by the way, that thought process it's not that it hasn't happened. It's that what I realize is that for most people, the bad choices happen in their head in nanoseconds, and they don't even think about it. It impacts their emotions, and then they take an action, and maybe they grab a donut.
Right. Exactly.
Right. And one of the things that, we've been really, really talking a lot about inside of our programs is like cue, craving, and response. So we have a cue, right? Something that cues us in. Maybe it's the donut, maybe it's the ice cream, maybe it's the chocolate. And we start to romanticize what those foods tasted like the last time we had them.
I was literally about to say, like, it's kind of like we have a belief around that craving as well, that, like, if I crave McDonald's, my belief is that it's going to it's going to satisfy me, and that I'm going to feel good after. And so I have to remind myself, like, it never tastes as good as I remember it, and I'm not going to feel good after. And so it's taking that moment to pause and sit with your emotions for a moment and say, is this going to actually help me meet my goal? And if it's not, do I need to do it right now? I don't.
That's right. So there's an emotional anchor around that particular food, because at one point it caused, so much joy. You had the food, you enjoyed it. That memory got anchored into your nervous system. And now, that's really where the struggle is. And so in that cue craving, that cue, that the thing that cues is in, and that part in where we have a decision to make. Hey, am I going to do this or not? One of the things, and I don't know if you remember this, we talked a lot inside of the program around creating visual cues, things that remind us of what we're doing, right? Maybe it's a sticky note, maybe it's your sneakers by the door to remind you to be active that day. Maybe it's you purchasing a treadmill and seeing it and saying, hey, I'm on this program, or opening your fridge and seeing all your meals prepped there. And so when there's a cue and there's that craving, those visual cues actually help you move in the opposite direction. And then of course your response is a good one. That's easier said than done. When we can master that, right? When we understand, hey, I'm being tempted, I'm being cued in, and I can promote in my head that the decision that I'm going to make is not in line with my goals, then the response can be a response that's going to be helpful towards, the direction of my goals and the things I'm trying to do.
Right.
It's so tricky, because when you start talking about these things, you realize that it's mostly your mind versus the mechanics.
Yeah.
Which is why I tell people all the time that mechanics, which are, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but I'll just say keto, Atkins, South Beach, macro counting, calorie counting, all these programs.
Oh, I lost sound for a second. I'm so sorry. I just lost sound.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Awesome. So what I was saying basically is that in that process of you, recognizing like what are the things that tempt you, creating an environment that actually supports you is one of the best ways to make this a lifestyle and something sustainable. Would you say that, is it something automatic for you now, or do you have some of those things in your environment that actually remind you of like, hey, this is who I am now. This is a new lifestyle now.
It is absolutely about creating the environment. So like I used to have all kinds of snacks like in the fridge and pantry, and every time I went to the fridge to get like water, I'd see a snack, and now it's like, oh, I must get one. And so it's removing it from my environment so that I don't see it every time I open the cupboards for something or the fridge. And also just surrounding myself with people who are going to support me. So like my husband's very supportive. Like he, eats whatever I eat, and is very much supportive of eating a healthy diet. My sister came to visit while I was on the plan, and when I was like, "Oh, we can get cookies," she was like, "No, you're on a plan. I'm going to do it with you." And she did it with me. She was here, and so really, I think I'm a big fan of systems and doing things that are going to help you win and make it more downstream as opposed to fighting against the system. So yeah, I don't think it's automatic for me. It's more of like the environment that I created to help me to keep on track.
That's amazing. That's really cool. We talked about that inside of the program. We talked about people, places, and things. I had that harsh saying that said, if you're looking to soar like an eagle, you can't continue to hang out with scavengers. And I know that sounds horrible, right? But it really talks about your environment and how those people actually influence you. And so the fact that your husband's supportive, you have people in your circle of influence that are actually supporting you is incredible. And it says a lot for, why you've been able to sustain the program for so long. And I believe that this will be a lifestyle for you. I don't think you're ever going back.
Yes.
And so 30 pounds in 90 days. It's been almost 9 months since you graduated from the program. You're still sustaining it. Congratulations. That's amazing. What would you say, Abby? What would you say to people on the other side that are watching this and possibly going, yeah, that works for her, but she only had 30 pounds to lose. I have 50, 100 pounds. Maybe it was easy for her, but not for me. What would you say to that person that's on the fence, that's skeptic, that doesn't think that this can happen for them?
I would say this program works, and I mean, I struggled my entire adult life with my weight just sort of fluctuating. And, you know, I had a baby. Most women don't get that to their pre-pregnancy weight in the first year. I think only 50% of women get to their pre-pregnancy weight within the first year. And I did it in the first like 3 months. And so I
Wow.
wouldn't say it was easy at all. I worked really hard
Mhm.
and it was a hard program, I'm not gonna lie. Like there are times in phase
Thank
one
you
where I
for
was
your
so mad
honesty.
at you. I was so mad at you. But it's
I have
so
so
worth
many
it.
mad people at me constantly upset. And then there's like at the end of the program, they're like, thank you so much. I'm
Right,
like,
exactly. Now I'm like, I love you. You're amazing. And so, yeah, so I'm one of those
That's
things
cool.
like, oh, it worked for her, but wouldn't work for me. Like, I really struggled too. Like, I tried for, a couple of years since COVID to lose the weight, and I wasn't able to do it. It just kept going up, and I couldn't figure out why. And I think that what JT does and says, it just works. And I just highly recommend you.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. I commend you for your efforts. I commend you for your follow through, your discipline. And I know for a fact that you have people in your circle of influence that you have either consciously or subconsciously influenced in a very positive way. Because I always say this, when we see other people change, it gives us permission to change.
Mm,
And I think that that's a beautiful thing. And beyond the benefits and the blessings that you've received, you're blessing others through that discipline and that follow through. So thank you.
thank
Continue to
you.
be a light in the midst of darkness. And just you have a friend here for life, a coach for life. And I'm just excited. I'm excited for you. And I know this is not just going to impact you, but you're going to leave a legacy for your family of health, which is the
Absolutely.
Bible says that a righteous man leaves an inheritance for his kids. And
Yes.
oftentimes we listen to that scripture and we think only about finances, but this is talking about lifestyle and educating them on food and educating them on all areas of life. And oftentimes we forget that part of that stewardship of our body. And so, you know, thank you for being proactive there and being responsible with your stewardship, but then of course impacting those around you.
Thank you. And
Thank you
thank
so
you
much
for
for being
inviting me
here.
to talk about this.
Absolutely, absolutely. We got to do it again. We got to do it again.
Absolutely.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Today we spoke with Dr. Abby. She came onto her program. She lost 30 pounds in 90 days. She's been able to keep it off. It's been almost 9 months since she graduated the program. As you heard in the interview, she's been able to maintain the weight loss. She has freedom around food. And the truth is that that freedom is available to you as well. I know there are many programs out there that promise all these big things, but at the end, you end up disillusioned and disappointed because you lose the weight, you gain it back. That's not the case with this program. We have a systematic approach that allows you to do exactly what Dr. Abby did inside of her program. We'd love to have you. I hope you've enjoyed this interview. I'm JT Tappius with the Empty Your Bucket Nutrition Plan. I'll talk to you guys soon. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.